Hey, howdy, hey y'all, Leanna here. Today I am doing my palette collection and declutter. This was a requested video and it's going to be quite a few series of videos because I admit that I have an extensive palette collection. So grab a snack, get you something to sip on, a little sippy. Get you a pen and a piece of paper and write down the palettes that you see that you would like for me to do a video on. And I will add those to my list of upcoming videos. I wanted to start out by showing you my nails because if you watched my BoxyCharm video and you saw that this iconic London palette did not perform well for me and I said use it on your nails, and that is what I have done. I did them just super quick so that I could show you that it is absolutely possible to do that. This is what this palette looks like, and I used this shade on my nails, and this accent nail is this kind of green duochrome. So if you have a palette that you don't like how it performs on your eyes, but you love some of the shades in it, you can absolutely keep it and use it on your nails. So this, although it's being decluttered from out of my palette inventory, I am keeping it to use on my nails. So I am kind of going in alphabetical order somewhat. I'm going to start off with my Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes. This Soft Glam palette is one of the first big girl palettes that I got when I started collecting palettes, and as you can see it has been well loved. I love this palette and I am absolutely keeping it. The next palette in my Anastasia collection is this Primrose palette, and I love the textured packaging on it. I have not used this palette. As you can see, it is a beautiful, beautiful eyeshadow and face palette. I love the color story in it, and I definitely will be keeping this palette and hope to use it soon. You're going to notice a theme throughout this video because I'm going to say a lot, oh, I haven't used that palette yet, but I intend to use them all. This is the Jackie Aina palette. I had no intention of purchasing this palette, but my daughter bought it and she loved hers, and she highly recommended that I get this palette, and so I did. I have used it once, but look at how pretty that is for fall, so I intend to use this palette some this fall. I am definitely keeping that. You'll also notice that I do not like to keep the shade savers. And then I have the ABH Norvina Pro Pigment Palette number 1. I got this, I believe, in a BoxyCharm box. It is a beautiful color story and I love the ABH formulas. Again, another palette that I have not used as of yet, but I have every intention of using it, and so I will be keeping that. And next I have the Norvina Pro Pigment Palette version number 3. I have played around with this palette a little bit. My daughter and I did a video chat, and I got her one, I don't know, for Christmas or her birthday, and we kind of played around with it. I didn't have a whole lot of luck with the color story. It's a little out of my comfort zone, but I do intend to try this palette again for fall, and then after I try it again, if it does not suit me, then I will declutter it at a later date. Next is the ABH Norvina Pro Pigment Palette version or volume 5. This is another palette that I have not used. This as well has a beautiful color story. I absolutely love how this palette looks. I most definitely will be keeping this and using it in the very near future. Next up, we have my Ace Beauté palettes. I have quite an extensive collection of Ace Beauté palettes. This is the Ace Beauté Violet Sage palette. This is their new palette. I purchased this off of their website. It is a beautiful palette, and I am definitely keeping that. Then we have the Vintage Dawn palette. This is a beautiful fall palette. I have not used this one yet either. I am keeping that. I got right many of their palettes off of their website when they had a sale. They were selling the older formulas to make way for the new reformulated palettes, and so I snatched them up because their older formula is really good in my opinion. This is the Tropical Vibes palette, another beautiful fall palette. I will be keeping that. I can tell you that I don't plan to get rid of any of my Ace Beauté palettes. This is the Slice of Paradise. Funny thing about this palette, I had it and I gave it to Andy from Andy Does Stuff. And then when they had their sale, I bought it. I'm keeping that. This is the Scarlet Dusk palette. This is a beautiful palette. I believe I have used this palette. Yes, I have. I am keeping that. This is the Quintessential palette. I believe that I got this in one of my boxes. I couldn't tell you which one. Boxy. I got it in BoxyCharm Premium. And I have used this palette. It's a nice palette. I'm keeping that. So far, without using any of the other palettes, this Paradise Fallen palette is my favorite Ace Beauté palette. I have used this palette a lot. I love this palette. Love it, love it, love it. I use this palette in a collab with Andy from Andy Does Stuff. And it is a gorgeous, gorgeous palette. I love those blues. Perfect palette. This is the Paletopoly. I did a collab with Renee from Beauty and More with Renee. We did a very fun collab with this palette. It's a beautiful palette. And I also enjoy the game that came with it. So I will definitely be keeping this to use with the game again. This is the Oceanic palette. I got this when they did their sale. Love the color story of this. Beautiful. I am keeping that. This is the Nostalgia palette. I did a collab video with Jennifer from Jennifer Loves Makeup. This as well is a beautiful, beautiful palette. Love it. Keeping that. And then we have the Floral Vintage palette. And oh my gosh, talk about the perfect fall palette. I have used this palette quite a bit as well. I just love this palette. I am definitely keeping that and using it for the fall. This is the Flare palette. I have not used this palette, but it is absolutely gorgeous. This is the old formula. I picked this up when they did their sale. I'm keeping that. This is the Falling For You palette. This as well has a beautiful color story. I have not used this palette. I am definitely keeping that. Next we have Classical Paradise. This as well has a beautiful color story. Beautiful fall palette. I am keeping that. And my last Ace Beauté palette is this Blossom Passion palette. I believe I have used this palette. Yes, I have. I used this in a collab with Andy from Andy Does Stuff. It is a beautiful palette, and I will definitely be keeping that. Next up, we have my Alter Ego palette collection. This is the Artemis Palette, and it is a dupe for the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. I have not used this palette yet. I fully intend to use it. And I intend to keep it because Ash from Makeup and Chaos says that this is a good palette. So I'm going to go on their word and I'm going to keep it. Next, I have the Canyon palette. This is a dupe for, I believe, Natasha Denona Bronze palette, which I do not have, and I do not think I'm going to be getting that palette, so I want to give this palette a try before I say that I am going to declutter it, and then if I don't like it, then I will declutter it then. And then I have the Blooms palette. This is a dupe for the Natasha Denona Love palette, which I do have, and so I am planning to do a comparison video. I'm sure you've seen lots of those, but I've never done one, and so I'm going to keep this to do that video with. And then I have this Luster palette, which is supposed to be a dupe for the Pat McGrath Divine Rose palette, which I do not have. So I cannot compare whether it is actually anything like that, but there are several dupe videos on that. I bought this palette because I thought it was beautiful and I intend to use it, so therefore I am keeping it. And my last alter ego palette is this Shadow Kiss, which I believe is a dupe for the Natasha Denona Glam palette, which I do have, so I will be using this and doing a comparison. Next up, I have my Artist Couture palettes. I only have two of them, and this is the Caliente palette, and I have used this palette. I love Artist Couture formulas. They perform very well, but I have never reached for this palette since I used it, and I used it when I unboxed it. I don't remember, BoxyCharm maybe? Yes, I got it in my BoxyCharm Premium. So I will not be keeping this palette. Yay! I can't believe that I actually found something that I'm going to declutter. I know somebody that would like this palette, so I will be passing it off to them. My next Artist Couture palette is the Supreme Nudes palette. This was the first palette of his that I purchased, and I love this palette. Love it, love it, love it. I am not getting rid of it. His shadows perform amazingly. And then I have two Ather Beauty palettes. I have the Desert Sun. Very, very pretty palette. And I have the Crystal, what is this? Moonlight Crystal Gemstone, which is also a beautiful palette. I have not used this gemstone palette, but I have used the other one. I used it when I unboxed it. I got it in my BoxyCharm Premium. I love the message that they put in their palettes. They don't put a mirror in there for the purpose of recycling and helping our planet. So I love what the brand stands for, but I did not like their formulas, and I will be decluttering both of these palettes. Next, I have this Base Blue Flower Eyeshadow and Blush palette. I got this in my Ice Cream Beauty box, and it is a beautiful palette. However, it did not perform well for me, and so I am going to declutter this one. Next up is this Sour You Doin' palette from the Beauty Bakery. I love that name. I just got this palette in the BoxyCharm Mega Sale. So this palette is new, and it is a beautiful fall palette, so I will definitely be keeping it. The next palette is this Beauty Bay Earthy palette, and My daughter influenced me into buying this palette because she has it and she loves it, and I have not used it yet, but oh my gosh, look at all of those greens. I am very excited about using this palette. I will definitely be keeping that. She also influenced me into buying the Midnight palette because she has this palette as well. Blue, I believe, is my color, and I love purple, so I will definitely be keeping this and hope to use it soon. She keeps asking me if I have used it. The next palette is this Beauty Creations Boudoir Shadows. This is a very pretty palette. I don't remember where I got it from. One of my subscription boxes, and I have swatched it. I have never used it, and I don't see myself reaching for it, so I will be decluttering this. And then I have the Beauty Creations Murillo Twins. I think that I'm pronouncing that correctly. These came in an AIA beauty bundle, and they are very pretty. I have not touched either one of them. I love the packaging. It's very pretty. Very pretty palettes. But I do not see myself reaching for these at all. So I will be decluttering these as well. And then I have this Be Bella Life in Pastel palette, and I believe that I picked this up at Marshall's. Very pretty. I have not used this along with all the others that I have not used, but I love the colors and those shimmers. Oh my gosh, so I am definitely keeping that. And then I have this Becca palette that I picked up at Marshall's, and this is such a unique, beautiful palette. I believe that these shadows here in the middle are like a baked formula. I love the embossing that they have on them. I have used this a couple of times, and I am definitely keeping this one. Next is this Bella Pierre Cosmetics Ultimate Nude Eyeshadow Palette. And I got this palette in the AIA Beauty Bundle. It is a beautiful palette, and I really want to make myself keep this palette, but I have never reached for it, so I'm going to declutter that one. The next palette is this Bella Argent, and this is Plum Premonition. And this is a very pretty little palette. I have never used it, and I don't see myself reaching for it. I love the eye there in the mirror. Very pretty. Nice packaging. Very nice. But I know I'm not going to use it, so I'm going to declutter it. Look at me go, y'all. I didn't think that I would be decluttering anything. And now we're getting into my BH Cosmetics collection, and I am 99.999% sure that I will not be decluttering any of these palettes. The original BH formulas are hard to find. I know that they have been purchased by Makeup Revolution, and to my understanding the formulas are not the same. So this is the Avocado Toast. I have used this palette. It's a beautiful palette, and I will definitely be keeping that. This is the BFF Alondra and Elsie palette, and as you can see, the outer carton has been through it. I got this at Marshall's not too long ago. I have not used it, and it is a very pretty palette. Love those blues. I will definitely be keeping this. And of course, there is no way I am getting rid of the Blueberry Muffin palette. It is just beautiful. I have used this a couple of times and I absolutely love it. And I have the Citrine palette, which is the Birthstone palette for November from out of their Birthstone collection, and I have not used this palette. This is my birthstone as I am a November baby. That color story makes me a little bit nervous. I am going to attempt to use this palette, but even if I don't, I am keeping it for nostalgia purposes. Next is the Mimosa palette. This is also a beautiful, beautiful palette that I have not used. It's even still got the color saver on it. So pretty. I will definitely be keeping that. And then we have the Mystic Zodiac palettes. This palette is Moon. I love the packaging. Love the color story. So, so, so pretty. I purchased this palette off of the Beauty Bay website. I believe that they still have them available. Keeping that. And this is the Sun palette that goes along with that. I bought this off of the Beauty Bay website at the same time. I believe I picked them up on sale. Beautiful, beautiful. Definitely keeping both of those. The Naughty palette. Christmas is coming, so as you can see, I have used this palette. It is a beautiful palette, and I am looking forward to using this again during the holidays. I am definitely keeping that. The Opalescence palette, I picked this up at Marshall's, I believe, recently. This as well is a beautiful palette. Definitely keeping that. The Puerto Rico palette, Party in Puerto Rico. This is shrink wrapped, so you know for sure that I have not used it. Look at all of those beautiful reds and pinks. I will definitely be keeping that and hopefully using that for the fall. The same with this Passion in Paris palette. It as well is still shrink wrapped, and this as well is still shrink wrapped, and I will definitely be using this. I'm loving the color story of that, so I'm keeping that. And my last BH palette is the Zodiac palette. I believe that I might have picked this up on their website. It just popped up one day because I was keeping tabs on their website. And look at how beautiful that is. These, I believe, are those baked formulas. So, so pretty. I'm excited to use this. I am definitely keeping that. Next up, we have the Blend Buddy Cosmetics Dollhouse palette. And this is a beautiful palette. This is a beautiful palette. The formulas for Blend Buddy Cosmetics are out frickin' standing. Love them, love them, love them. I used this in a collab with Andy from Andy Does Stuff. And I am definitely, definitely keeping this palette. I also have the Surge palette. This was the very first palette that I purchased. And again, look at those colors. The formulas are just phenomenal. I am not decluttering this palette, and if I said I was, somebody should come save me. Next, I have the Be Perfect Carnival 3 palette. This is the Love Tahini palette. It is their collab with Stacey Marie, and this as well is a beautiful palette. Look at all of those colors. This brand as well has phenomenal formulas, and I used this palette in a collab with V from Simply You Makeup, And then I have the Be Perfect Carnival, the Antidote palette, which was another collab with Stacey Marie. And I have not used this palette. Look at the beautiful fall colors in this palette. The reason I bought this palette is because of Ash from Makeup and Chaos and Pia at Makeup by Pia W. I watched them do a collab with this palette and it was just beautiful. I'm looking forward to using this for some fall makeup looks. Next I have this little Butter London palette. This is the Goddess palette, I believe is what this is called. Yep, Natural Goddess. And it is a beautiful little palette. And I have never used it. And I have never reached for it. But my gosh, look at this shade right here. So, so pretty. And as much as I hate to, because the palette is so pretty and I love the packaging and the name, I am going to declutter that one. And I am also going to declutter this Teddy Boy from Butter London. This is a pretty palette as well. I have used this palette once and I have never reached for it again, so I am going to let this one go. And then I have my C Color Cosmetics palettes, the unisex. This is unisex 1. And it is a beautiful color story. I have used this palette quite a few times. Their formulas perform very, very well, and I love this palette. I am keeping it. And I also have the unisex 3. This is a beautiful color story. I love it. And I can't remember whether one or both of these palettes are a dupe for some of the Jeffree Star palettes. Great pigmentation, very nice formula. I'm keeping both of those. So this is video number 1 of my palette collection and declutter video, and I am very proud of myself that I actually have 11 palettes here that I'm going to declutter, because I seriously, when I think about decluttering my eyeshadow palettes, it gives me just a little bit of anxiety. I'm like, I don't want to let my babies go. But these are palettes that I am not going to use, and I am sure that I have friends and family that will like these palettes and want to get some use out of them. So thanks for hanging out with me and watching me do my very first in the series. Before you go, make sure you show that like button some love. And as always, I'd like to remind you that makeup is meant to enhance the natural beauty that you already are. And we are all beautiful at any age and any size. Find something to be grateful for today. Don't be like me. Pull your makeup out and play with it. And I'll see y'all in my next video. Bye-bye. Christopher, do you see anything here that you like? You probably need Teddy Boy. I mean, Teddy Boy. Come on, look at these. Look at these pretty, neutral, manly colors. I mean, remember when I was telling you you needed to take a brow product and fill in your beard? That color right there would do that. Looking good, darling. You want Mama to send this to you? I will. Mama loves you, boo.